Welcome to the VBSC podcast. I'm your host, Greg Hersig, also known as the Volleyball Strength Coach. That's where we get the VBSC from. And this is a solo episode, just me today. We will be back next week with the entire coaching staff going through some things like we did in the past couple episodes. Now, this is only episode 3 of the podcast. So make sure you go back and check out the other 2 so you can meet the team and you know what I'm talking about. You know who I'm talking about with our whole coaching staff. We will be back with another one coming pretty soon. So today, doing a solo episode. Long story short, I had to change the schedule. My daughter turned 3, so we kind of rearranged some things with the team meeting. So we didn't record after our team meeting like we typically do. So instead, what I'm doing is a little bit of Q&A. So I've got some questions from Instagram and from some Instagram lives and things like that I wanted to dive a little bit more deeply into in this podcast episode. And then you guys can learn a little bit more about me, a little bit more about the business and the training style, and just get your questions answered. So I've got 4 questions we're going to run through today. Some of them are more like about me and like the personal side. Some of them are obviously going to be more directly about the training side. And I think you guys are going to want to stick around until the last question when I really dive deep into like, what do you have to do to jump higher and hit harder, which is one of the most important things that a lot of volleyball players are looking for. So without further ado, let's get into it. And the first question to me, how long have you been playing and what got you into volleyball? So I am 35 years old. I started playing volleyball on my first team when I was 12. So I have been playing for 23 years playing volleyball. And there was a break in there. There's a couple breaks in there, but basically, I got into it from my parents. So both my parents played. My mom played in high school, and I think she played like a little bit of club in college. My dad played for a lot of my childhood and kind of recreationally throughout a lot of that time. And so we would play at like, family parties and things like that sometimes. And we had just an old net that we would be able to put up in our backyard and just play a little bit of grass volleyball. So me, my mom, my dad, and my older brother, we would play. They would kind of teach us, show us the ropes, everything like that. And then when I was 12, I was in 7th grade. My parents put me on a CYO team. And CYO was like church league, like for kids. We did it for basketball too. And we were terrible. we were really bad. But I picked up on it very quickly. I actually remember to this day, like the first time I spiked an overpass when I was like 12 or 13 years old. And my dad was there. He thought it was the coolest thing ever because he's kind of the bigger volleyball guy at this point too. And I still remember that exact thing. And even one of the guys on the other team told the kid that overpassed. He was like, "Oh, set him again," something like that. Like it was just cool. So that led me into playing. So I did that for 2 years, and then I went and played in high school. So I did technically I made varsity as a freshman. We only had a varsity team, and we were also very bad my freshman and my sophomore year of high school. But I did get some playing time as a freshman, so played 4 years, not necessarily a 4-year starter, but a 3-year starter. And I was an all-state player my senior year. So I was kind of in the running for Player of the Year in Ohio my senior year. Sadly did not win, but that's okay. It was great. The guy that did one ended up being a setter at Ohio State. So made a lot of sense there. But then that led me to eventually I got recruited into college, that's a completely different story. That's a whole story in and of itself and how that happened. It was very late. But yeah, so shout out to my parents. They're kind of the whole reason that any of this is happening in the first place, because they're the ones that got me into volleyball, and they pushed me into those CYO teams early, helped me have the resources I need to play in high school, play club, eventually play in college, and do all of this. So shout out to them. Question number 2, what is the biggest training lesson that you've learned since doing all of this? So I have been doing this volleyball strength coach thing technically since 2019 is kind of when I started the Instagram page, kind of started posting everything like that. And just to answer the question, the biggest lesson I've learned is that everyone has ideas that you can pull from. So nobody has this whole thing figured out. Nobody has fitness figured out. Nobody has nutrition figured out. Nobody has strength and conditioning figured out. And if anybody tells you this is the only way to do it, this is the best way to do it, I don't think that exists. because maybe it's the best thing for that individual person at that individual time, but maybe 6 months down the line, that training style might change. And so the fitness world is very polarizing. Everyone's trying to get eyeballs. They're all trying to say like, my thing is the best. Don't do that. This is stupid. Do mine instead. And I have, for the most part, especially as I've matured, just gotten away from that thought process at all and started to realize that it's like, okay, well, I might not like everything that these guys do, but I can pull some stuff from there. I might not like everything that these guys do, but I can find value in something. And this is kind of a hot take for the other strength coaches out there, is if you can't look at every other training style and find something of value in that training style, then I just don't think you're a very good coach. I don't think you're as good of a coach as you can be, because every crazy training style, the fascia training and the Olympic lifting and like all these different things, all the stuff that, gets hated on the most, 90-degree, eccentric isometrics, those type of things. Like there's value in pieces of all of that. And you should be able to pull those pieces of value at certain times for certain athletes, certain clients, whatever. It doesn't have to be what you do all the time, but you should be able to pull lessons and pull pieces from all of them to become the best coach that you can be. And that, even when people are talking about how to grow on social media and all these things, they talk, you have to be polarizing and, say this is good and this is bad, and it works. But like, I think my version of that is not that any different training style is bad, but if you only think one training style works, then I disagree with you on that. That's kind of my polarization, is I think everything has value. And if you say that only one thing is the best, then I disagree with you on that. So that's been my biggest lesson. We do have kind of our foundational frameworks that we use. We do a lot of triphasic training, which is from Cal Dietz. I took a lot from Knees Over Toes guy. I did his workouts and I did ATG for coaches for about 18 months. Back in 2020 and 2021 primarily, and found a lot of value like in those two things. I used to work, closely with a guy named Julian Pinot from StrongFit, and using some very, very interesting stuff from him that doesn't always translate as well to the online side. But just kind of using those as like foundational frameworks of kind of how we train athletes, and created our own system of those pieces that work extremely well, in my opinion. Question number 3, what was the hardest part about playing in college? So part of that other story is I got recruited really late to college. So I wasn't really reaching out to coaches. I was actually going and playing. I was going to go play club in college at Ohio Northern University. And then I got recruited by Ball State over the summer at nationals, where I then essentially had to drop out of Ohio Northern, commit to Ball State without ever actually going on campus or seeing anything, just talking to the coaches, everything like that. The whole story is like a little bit longer, a little bit crazier, but I did that. And so I went to going to play club, which was a good club team, but going from playing club to playing Division I very quickly. And it was just completely turned my world upside down on a volleyball side of things. Like I went from being, essentially one of the best players in the state of Ohio to the worst player on the team, like almost immediately. And, I'm about 6'3", maybe 6'4" with volleyball shoes on, playing against guys that are 6'7", 6'8", 6'9", and just getting annihilated for the first year and a half of me playing in college. Now, to answer the question, the hardest part for me was for sure the speed of the game. So on the blocking side, just having to be so much faster as a blocker to be able to get out and block your pin, or to be able to help with the middle, that was for sure the hardest part. The second hardest part was definitely just the height and just the mentality change around offense, I think was a huge thing, because I love to just bounce balls. You know what I mean? And it's when you're trying to bounce balls against a solid 2-man or 3-man D1 block, I got blocked so many times, it was unbelievable. So I had to really change my mentality around what an effective offense is, and in the whole thing of a point is a point, it doesn't matter how you score it type of thing. That was, it took me a long time. Like I said, first probably year and a half, took me a long time to figure that out. But once I did figure that out, eventually I did work my way up to being an all-conference player my senior year for Ball State. So hardest part was for sure the speed. The speed of playing really caught me off guard and took a lot to adjust to. And then final question for today, the big one. What do I have to do to jump higher and hit harder? And I'm a big, this is obviously the question everybody has, like all volleyball players, they all want to jump higher, they all want to hit harder. Like this is the whole reason my job exists in the first place, right? And so I really like to break things down into like the most understandable, digestible version of those things, where it's like, I've got the science background, I've got a master's degree in sports performance. Like we can talk about science jargon and that's fine, but that doesn't help you guys. Like when you see people on Instagram posting all of that, really super scientific-y stuff, they're just doing that for other coaches so that other coaches know that they're smart. They're not doing that for the benefit of their potential clients or the people that are watching, right? Another hot take there. So I like to kind of get away from that and make things more easily just understandable for people who don't have a background in exercise science and they don't want to learn all of the sciencey stuff, but they can still get the value from it. So let's talk about, jumping higher first, right? These things I'm going to be talking about apply to both, whether it's jumping higher or hitting harder. So let's think about this. Regardless of which one it is, we need our muscles to be able to produce more force. Right. So that is basically, we need to get stronger. If we want to jump higher, our legs have to be able to produce more force. If we want to hit harder, our core and our chest and our shoulder and our lats and our triceps have to be able to produce more force. That is one part of it. The other part of it is we have to get faster. Those muscles have to be able to do things faster. So, if you want to jump higher, more speed into your approach, more speed from, going down to going up. If all of those things happen faster, then you will jump higher. If you can go through the entire arm swing mechanics at a faster speed, you will transfer that force into the ball, and then you will hit it harder, right? So that's part of it. We've got produce more force and produce more speed. When we combine those things together, that's what is called power. And power is essentially how much force can you produce and how fast can you produce that force. And so what we're really looking for is power production. So it's not just about producing more force. So, even if you get your squat from 400 pounds to 500 pounds, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to jump higher if you're not getting faster. It's not necessarily just getting faster, because we need to, and a big aspect of getting faster is improving your force production. So it's like we have to have both of those. That equates to having a higher power output, and then that equates to jumping higher. And just on that note, I do want to come back to this. The other part of that is improving technique, and that goes for both, whether it's jump technique or whether it's arm swing technique. If you do all of those things, you produce more power, you produce it more quickly, you increase your power, or produce more force, produce it more quickly, so you increase your power output, but you do it with really bad technique, you're not going to necessarily translate that to the thing you want to translate it to. So, jump technique, arm swing technique, doing those things independently of the action and working on the basic foundations of your ability to rotate, your patient elbow, your ability to, snap, all those different things, to hip and shoulder separation and using your hip and your core and keeping your arm relaxed, all those different things. Those are going to help you translate that new power production you have into where it matters, which is in the sport. And there's another big factor when it comes to jumping higher, not necessarily hitting harder, and that is your body weight. So if we even take this, maybe one step further back, the only thing you have to do to jump higher is increase your power output based on or compared to your body weight. So power to weight ratio, that's the one thing that really matters the most with jumping higher. So we talked about, how to produce power, more force, do more speed, so you produce force faster. And if we do that, but our body weight goes up at the same ratio of our power production, then you probably won't jump higher. So what we need to do is make sure either our body weight stays the same and we increase our power production, or maybe if you got too much body weight actually goes down as power production goes up. Because again, what we really need is that power to weight ratio. The difference between those two is the big thing. That's why, basically all volleyball players, whether it's male or female, they fit within a specific range of height to weight ratio. So BMI, and I know BMI, is not a great indicator of very much, but it can be used as a comparison tool for this. So most high-level men's volleyball players have a BMI of 22 to 24. Most women's volleyball players have a BMI of 20 to 23. And so there's a reason for that. It's because having that amount of body weight per their height allows them to optimize their power to weight ratio. So at that point, they just have to continue pushing up their power production, and they don't have to worry about, as long as they're not gaining weight. So hopefully that makes sense. It's not specific. I've got a lot of things on the specifics. You can watch my YouTube videos, my Instagram posts to see like workouts to jump higher, workouts to hit harder. But if you understand the fundamentals of how those things happen, I think that's a really important key for you to know. So again, we have to get our muscles stronger. So all of the basic exercises to get your muscles stronger: squats, deadlifts, lunges, leg presses, calf raises, hamstring curls, whatever it is for upper body, bench press, rows, pull-ups, like all of those things just get the muscles stronger. We need to do things that allow us to move faster. So for the lower body, it could be plyometrics, could be sprinting, could be nervous system training. For the upper body, it could be ball throws, just working on hitting as hard as you can. I really like ball throws. I think like throwing a ball is a very effective way to increase arm swing speed. And then we don't necessarily need to do specific things for training power, because if you're just jumping a lot and you're hitting a lot, those are high power output activities in general. There's things we can do, but for most people, if you are lifting and you're jumping and you're doing things for speed, you're already increasing power production naturally. So we don't necessarily have to do extra things for that, but we can talk about, things like Olympic lifting and whatever too. So that's the foundation. And then how you do that, it almost doesn't necessarily matter how you get there. We have to increase force production. We have to increase speed. That's going to increase power production. We increase that without, at a higher proportion to our body weight, whether that means it stays the same or goes down or just goes up more slowly. And that is how you jump higher. That is how you hit harder at the foundational level. So hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that was a bit more understandable and you got some good takeaway from that. If you do have questions that you want me to answer in a solo podcast like this, if you're watching this on YouTube, because it's going to go on both, leave them in the comments, DM me on Instagram, or just let me know. Yeah, that's probably the two best ways to comment, or to let me know what questions you have for me. But hopefully you enjoyed the solo episode. We will be back next week with the full crew to just get you guys to understand and know the coaching staff a little bit more. But I appreciate you. Make sure you check out episodes 1 and episodes 2 it's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Make sure you're following the Instagram page, Volleyball Strength Coach. YouTube is Volleyball Strength Coach, and the VBSC podcast on all podcasting platforms. And we will catch you next time.